So, Eric Biddinger is joining us today from the DNR, Indiana Department of Natural Resources, Office of Entomology, right?
Division of Entomology.
Yeah, okay. And I've known and worked with Eric off and on for quite a while.
Yeah, it's been a few years.
Eric knows just a lot, and is a great storyteller, and so we will invariably send you off into tangents, and it's great because he's as a good storyteller, he always brings it back around. And anyway, we wanted Eric to. We hoped he'd be able to join us in this series because there are some important, interesting, concerning things happening in the world of bugs and invasive pests, things that we need to be aware of, as well as interested by. So with that, I think I'll just sit down and let Eric do his wonderful thing.
Right off the bat, my apologies to whoever's watching on recording later because I will be all over the room. I hope not to give you too much motion sickness. Again, my name is Eric Biddinger. I am a nursery inspector with the Indiana Department of Natural Resources, Division of Entomology and Plant Pathology. And I like to start off with this little 3-slide set right off the bat. What is the DNR? Because the Department of Natural Resources, most of you are familiar with it generally, but not specifically. Because the DNR, I'm missing a slide, there it is. Get back here. Yeah, I've had nothing but computer problems for the last week, so if this thing makes it through, I will be ecstatic. So anyway, this is an overview of the Department of Natural Resources. Some of these divisions you will be very familiar with. Things like law enforcement, that's the conservation officers. There's fish and wildlife. There's somewhere over here state parks. Our administration division has a whole bunch of other things, accounting, human resources. MIS is our computer division. So we've got all these different things that the DNR do, but you notice a few of these are probably a little less familiar to you. Water works with the Army Corps of Engineers on the reservoirs as well as other places, low-head dams, that type of thing that they're concerned with. Reclamation and oil and gas. Well, that's the mining areas down in southern Indiana. That's where they're predominantly active. We've got a couple others, land acquisition. That's kind of a legal department that they help us get the properties, and then the properties are farmed off to other divisions. Things like forestry has the state forest. Outdoor recreation has some areas, as well as, who am I looking for here? Nature preserves, which isn't on the list.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, there it is, yeah. So nature preserves has areas as well. So anyway, we have a lot of land holding divisions, but we also have legal divisions, which is where I fall into. And we are the Division of Entomology and Plant Pathology. So our job is 3 things. So we do 4 things that we do. The first is phytosanitary inspections. So if you are shipping plant material out of the state of Indiana, we need to get you USDA paperwork that says that this material meets the requirements of the country you're shipping to. And in Indiana, we ship a lot of lumber and a lot of logs. And that's primarily what we do, and that's followed very closely by corn, soybeans. Also, an incredible amount of sorghum goes out of Indiana as well for seed. The second part is nursery inspections and compliance. Anybody that sells plant material in the state of Indiana has to have a license. That's everything from the largest nursery in the state, which is Bluegrass Farms, all the way down to the mom and pop roadside places. Depending on what they sell, they may need a license. Walmarts need licenses. all the box stores. So we do the licensing and compliance on all that. The third thing is invasive species regulation and control. So we get involved anytime that there's an invasive species. If we can control it, regulate it somehow, we will do our best to do that. The last section is apiary inspection and regulation. If you're moving hives between states, there's a lot of different requirements between states. Whether you need an inspection to move the hives or whatever needs to be done, we can help you assist you in those matters. So the topics I have for today, so I'm going to try and run through this stuff pretty fast, as long as you guys don't get me stuck on a slide or something here. But I'm going to run through this and then open it up to questions, because that's the most fun for me, is to just go wherever you guys want me to go. So we're going to start off with the one that gets all the attention. We're going to move into all my little coded things here that are kind of obscure, but we're going to start off with the one that gets all the attention. I mention that because this insect was actually featured on a Saturday Night Live skit, and it was hilarious. And the thing is it blew through New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and it's made its way here. This is spotted lanternfly. And really, before I go too much further, I'm just going to put it this way. Yes, it's an invasive species, but to me, this is more of a nuisance than a pest. And I'll explain why here in a moment. So this insect's favorite food in the world is this tree, which is tree of heaven, Alanthus.
How lucky did we get?
I'm sorry?
How lucky did we get?
Yeah, exactly. So oftentimes when we go into areas and we're looking for spotted lanternfly, we're going to first look for tree of heaven. And if you take a step back and think, where do you see tree of heaven in the environment?
Along the mill race.
Along the mill race? Where else?
Ditches.
Railroads? Huh. Oh, that's the next slide. Okay. This is a little bit older map. This is a couple years old, or at least a year old. Indiana now has 15 confirmed counties. And they pepper down through Indianapolis and around. There's no rhyme or reason to it, except a lot of these places do have one thing in common, especially when you look across that northern tier of counties. And this is what they have in common. Tree of heaven is definitely a tree of disturbed sites, and it grows in thickets very often, but sometimes you will find trees 15, 18, 24, 36 inch in diameter. You'll find the really old ones. But in this particular case, some of you may be very familiar with this site. This is along US 20 at the Norfolk Southern Yard in Elkhart. And this is where the dumpster is sitting, and this is where the trains pull up to change crews. So they will get off, throw their stuff in the dumpster, and the next crew will get on and they'll take the train and pull off. So these trains are sitting here sometimes for hours. And that gives the insect a time, especially in the fall, these insects, these adults, will seek out warmth. So they will go find the warmth on the engine. They're excellent hitchhikers. People have found adults sitting on car hoods at 70 miles an hour going down the interstate. They've got a very good grip. So they will come down here and then they'll say, well, I'm hungry. And the train stops, so they'll pop off and go feed on the tree of heaven. And if they happen to mate and the female's got enough energy, she'll lay her egg mass. So we found egg masses and adults in that cluster of tree of heaven there. So what does this insect do? It's a piercing, sucking insect, and I want to make a comment back here on this image. You see the image at the bottom with the wing spread? You never see them in the environment like that. They always have their wings folded. Entomologists, for some reason, like to pin insects and pull their wings out and But you never see the bugs like that. So why we use those images, I don't know. So anyway, the adult you will see most often. Back on the instars, they have 4 instars. They start off looking like large spotted ticks. They're quite small in size. And then they, after a couple instars, get the red coloration. And I want to talk about their coloration because when you see an insect like this, you think that would be really easy to find, right?
Quickly, what size are they after about the 3rd instart when you see the color, when you see the coloration?
Small Japanese beetle,
Okay.
maybe about 2/3 the size of a Japanese beetle, adult. But we're going to take a look here. I mentioned the coloration. But okay, so the adults are piercing sucking insects, and we need to talk about this first. They put their mouth parts into they're a leaf hopper. They're not actually a fly. They're not a lantern. They don't glow. They put the mouth part in, and they suck the juices out of the tree. So whatever they don't digest, they excrete. And that is called honeydew. So that's got all the sugar from the plant. And they forcefully squirt that out of their bodies. And they also tend to be a very gregarious insect. So the videos I've got here are individuals, but you will often see them in 30s, 40s, 50s, or hundreds. So you got all these insects pulling all this juice out of the tree and squirting it on the ground. And sometimes your first clue that you're in an area with spotted lanternfly is your feet start sticking to the ground because of all that sticky honeydew. And then it molds. And in the fall, you can smell it often before you even see it. On top of that, that sugar and that fermenting sugar attracts bees and hornets. So I mentioned this being a nuisance, especially in urban areas. So now you have an insect that attracts bees and hornets. So it's really just nuisance level things that really cause this insect to be a problem. As far as economic impact, grape industry, they love grapes, and they can have a significant impact on a vineyard. The other place that you might see, I have not seen any indications that while they will feed on maple, walnut, and other things, I have not seen any indications that they have any drastic effect on the growth of those trees. Under stress, maybe that will differ. So anyway, I want to show you this video and give you an idea on their camouflage. So this is going to cut around a couple of different ways. But as we pull back here, at what point does that almost disappear into that bark? You wouldn't think they're that camouflaged, but especially when you get into shady understory areas, this insect can be kind of hard to see. And sometimes they're camera shy. And the joke is all those videos, and those are the same 2 spotted lanternfly over and over again. Because those were the only 2 I could find that day for some weird reason. Now we're going to go to, we're going to jump over to something a little different here. The other thing that we do oftentimes is we look for egg masses. In fact, there's a crew in Huntington today, and I've got some photos that they've sent from today. First thing this morning, they're absolutely incredible. But what they're doing is they're out looking for egg masses. And thanks for inviting me here today that I don't have to be out there doing that. So I want to show you this video. And I want you tell me when you raise your hand when you spot the egg mass. Oops. This is a hackberry tree. Guys see it yet?
Oh. Vertical blocks. No idea.
It's right here.
Wow.
You send people to look for those?
Last week we scraped over 4,000 egg masses. Now I have another picture. The other weird thing is they like to be anywhere where they're tucked in. So there's a picture I've got, and I'll show it to you here at the end. I'll switch my phone out and put it up on the projector. But they peeled bark back off of a dead ash tree and found over 100 egg masses behind that bark. So they like to get down inside things and get tucked in. And it reminds me a whole lot of looking for gypsy moth egg masses or spongy moth egg masses. So anyway, that is spotted lanternfly in a nutshell. And you're going to see more and more of it. It's up in Elkhart. There's areas in this region we're looking, Oxbow Park. The whole front end of that park is Tree of Heaven. As you go around the entry, that whole area is in there. So these are areas, and it's not far from a railroad track. So those are areas that we're actively looking in and trying to find. So what can you do? We do have a website for spotted lanternfly, and there is a reporting app on there. So if you ever see anything, snap a picture of it, go onto the reporting app, and I can show you how to get there here in a little bit. So that is spotted lanternfly in a nutshell. One other thing, Vince told me to mention this. We are doing some treatments on Tree of Heaven in areas where we have found spotted lanternfly, and I've got to get permissions. Unfortunately, it's all up in Elkhart at this point, not down here in Goshen. But we are going to be doing some treatments. As long as we have funding, we'll keep at things. But right now with the USDA funding is one giant question mark, as you guys can imagine.
What's the nature of the treatments?
We will often do dinotephoride, which is you just spray it on the trunks of the Tree of Heaven and then you let it go. Basically, you've poisoned their major food source. So we'll find some of the biggest Tree of Heaven in a particular area, treat those trees, and make them toxic to spotted lanternfly.
Does it kill the tree as well, or no?
No, it's an insecticidal treatment. Cutting Tree of Heaven is a whole nother ball game because you take this tree, you take your chainsaw, cut it down, you think it's done? No, it comes back with 1,000 root suckers. So you have to use herbicides on this particular tree. It is not easy to control. But why would we control the tree when we can use it as a lure to get rid of the insects? So it's one of those give or take situations. There really is no great management. There's a lot of research being done with spotted lanternfly. There's a lot of things. If you're really interested in it, go in and look up the 2025 Spotted Lanternfly Summit. All the videos are on, I moderated the sessions. All the videos on the first day are research, and they are incredible about what they're talking about doing with spotted lanternfly. We could get into interference RNA and some of the stuff like that is so theoretical right now, but it seems so interesting. So anyway, the next one I want to talk about is the landscape menace. And this is box tree moth. It is in Ohio, it is in Michigan. This is primarily being spread through the nursery trade. But this is an insect that feeds on boxwoods. There's a few other things it may creep into. We're really not sure at this point. But it's a little caterpillar that feeds in the foliage, and then it overwinters with these little silken purses that it creates, and then it comes back out as a caterpillar and continues to feed. So if you see this webbed mass of leaves, dead leaves into the boxwoods, that's something that needs to be looked at. It's easy to control, but the problem is most people don't look in their landscapes enough. The landscapers are concerned about it. BT, Bacillus thuringiensis, very commonly used on caterpillars, is very effective on this particular insect. But again, like anything, you've got a timing issue. You've got to treat it when the caterpillars are actively feeding. And unfortunately, the best time for BT on boxwoods is probably the fall, because that's when the caterpillars are the smallest. There is a possibility of multiple generations a year, depending on the climate. But this is a guy that's getting into the landscapes. And I only mention boxwood, box tree moth, because I don't like boxwoods. Boxwoods are a pain in my neck because they have so many things. We mentioned boxwood, box tree moth, but one of the other big ones here is boxwood blight. And then there's also what they're calling boxwood, it's not boxwood decline, they got another name for it. And it's another disease that's just coming onto the radar of everybody else. So, and the only way to really differentiate all these different diseases is send your samples to the lab to figure out which one you have. And there's a really funny thing, they came out with this boxwood blight resistant boxwood. And it does great against boxwood blight, but all of them are very super susceptible to boxwood leaf miner. So they managed to collect for one thing and make it more susceptible to something else. So Volutilla, Phytophthora, Macrophoma, abiotic issues, and in the end, my opinion, boxwoods are overused. But they are about the only plant that fills that niche in a landscape that people are comfortable using. So I don't know what to do. It's just something to be aware of if you have issues. If you see something really weird on boxwoods or they're just dying left and right, that might be a case to give me a call and figure out what's going on. Indiana terrestrial plant rules. So back in 2020, we fully enforced a rule that made 44 plants invasive in the state, classified as invasive in Indiana. Now I need to differentiate two things here. There is the Indiana Invasive Species Council, and their list of Indiana invasive species is about 200 or so. 312 IAC 18325 makes 44 of them illegal in the state of Indiana. So there's this whole thing about moving plants, adding plants to the rule that would actually make them illegal for sale. So you can look up the rule here. That's actually an old website. I can give you a better one here in a second. But the two biggest hits we got in the nursery industry are barberry and winter creeper euonymus. So if I find these two plants in a nursery, it is destruction order right there. They go in the dumpster. Do not sell them, do not return them, do not move them. They go away. So yes, there are a lot of invasive species that are not on the list. There's 12 or so in consideration. This is one of the big ones. Anybody know what that one is? Calorie pear. They're in bloom right now. Go down US 31 between Kokomo and Indianapolis, and they line the whole street. Where was it? 25 between Logansport and Delphi is also loaded. But so how do we get things if people keep asking, how do we get calorie pear onto the invasive species list? And the answer is it's political. So the way I explain it is we have to do certain things legally. Right now we're doing what's called recodification, which means all of DNR's rules have to be reapproved every 5 years. That takes a lot of lawyer bandwidth. Because we have our legal team doing recodification, it's really hard to tell them that we need to push this rule through and these improvements. So they keep saying, yeah, we'll get to it later. And some of it is, and I tell the general public, if you really feel strongly about this type of stuff, this is where you need to reach out to your legislators and tell them to make it happen. Because they can put pressure on the DNR and on the legal staff to get things like this done. And this is where your communication with your elected officials is very important. But anyway, this has been sitting there for about 3 or 4 years to add more species on, and we'll get there eventually. My old friend, this is spongy moth, formerly known as gypsy moth. This is one I bring up especially up in this area because there are populations up here. There are areas of defoliation. One that I just recently found last year was Bonneville Mill Park. Back in one particular area, the big old oak trees were darn near stripped. There's some areas over by South Bend that have struggled with this. Another place is McAughton Park. Is another one that has over by the tennis courts has had a lot of, and actually that's where I'm going when I leave here to go see how my populations are doing. So spongy moth is a insect that the caterpillar is the damaging stage. They should be hatching out next week or so, depending on how the cold weather breaks. But we'll see these caterpillars, they'll come out at a 1/4 inch stage and then they'll crawl up into the trees, and each one of these caterpillars can lay between, or each of these caterpillars can eat between 9 and 12 square feet of foliage. So it doesn't take very many egg masses before you end up with oak trees that are completely stripped, and white oak is their absolute favorite tree. But they'll feed on about 300 different species. But this is something that is up here. It's been managed. You guys are actually behind the treatment line. You kind of see this line. It's kind of US 30 right now is where we're working. We do have a treatment site, but we're down in Bourbon right now for treatment. But if you've got a boom in population, I'll be happy to tell you, happy to advise, happy to tell you what I know about this insect. This insect is manageable. And that is what makes me much happier dealing with spongy moth than dealing with spotted lanternfly or emerald ash or one of the others. So, but this is one that we can actually do something about. Population 2018, we had a boom, 100% defoliation around Granger and Fort Wayne. The next year, trap catch fell by half. And then since then, we've seen a steady increase back up on the trap catches. This photo, this is in Fort Wayne. Anybody know what time of year this is? What month was this picture taken? May?
June?
Look at the maples in the background. These are oaks in the foreground. These are maples in the background. So anybody want to guess again?
August?
July.
It was June. This was late June. That's how much destruction had happened on those oak trees. But you see, they had the oak trees, so they left the maples completely alone. The good news on this particular insect is we treat this like a fire line. You guys are behind the fire line, but it doesn't take me much effort to find in the spring dead caterpillars. This in particular is Entomophica mimiga. There's also MPV, a virus. Entomophica being a fungus. And in cool wet weather, they'll run through the caterpillars like a plague. So the whole objective is to keep this insect from spreading into new areas and allow the diseases, and there's also insects that will feed on the caterpillars. There's an egg mass parasitoid that's absolutely incredible. They're the tiniest little things, but they'll take out 40% of an egg mass. And so the whole idea is to make way for those insects to catch up from behind and help us control those populations. Vascular streak disease, I won't spend much time on this. This has primarily been a redbud issue, but they're finding it on other things now. It's a nursery industry thing. It's very easily mistaken as verticillium wilt, but this is one we're still learning about, and we're very fortunate that one of the experts in the world on this particular disease is at Purdue. So I call John every once in a while with questions about this thing, and he's very willing to give us his time. So it's just something that's out there. If you're buying new trees, especially red buds, this is something to be aware of. Beech leaf disease and beech bark disease kind of seem to be that. I have seen these up in northern Michigan. Beech leaf disease is a foliar nematode that causes this streaking because they're feeding in between certain veins. And they cause this mottling on the leaf. And then beech bark disease is a disease being transferred by a scale. And interestingly, both of these diseases are thought to be spread by birds, which makes them almost impossible to control. But if you deal with beech at all, and you can see this hankering in the stem here, and then you can also see the scale on the trunk on this photo. If you see this type, or you can see this discoloration in the leaves, let me know. This is something that we're tracking as it comes into Indiana. Northern Indiana doesn't have a whole lot of beech, southern Indiana more so. But we do have patches of it here and there. So this is one that, it's a bit of a mystery. We don't know everything about this disease, but we're learning more every year. So what can you guys do about it? You guys remember back in the days of 9/11, they were always saying, see something, say something. Well, it's much the same with these diseases. So my position, there are 15 of us in my division that cover, and actually that includes our administrative staff. So there's 12 of us field inspectors, and we cover the whole state. So we don't see everything, so we rely on the public to tell us things that are going on. So please don't hesitate to reach out. I would rather somebody call me and be wrong than not call me and be right. And oftentimes I'll get that call and I'll go out and look at something and think, I don't know. And I've got to call somebody. And we get other people involved and figure out what's going on. Buy from reputable sources. This is nursery stock. This is firewood. This is everything. When you start buying things from just willy-nilly places or somebody growing, and please, if you get seeds from China, don't plant them. That's happening again. That's been picking up. So, and I used to have a really long list, and it had "don't move firewood" on there like 6 times. And so we're really serious about that. Don't move firewood.
I don't understand. What does that mean?
So firewood is one of the biggest places that we can move some of these invasive insects. Let's take the history of emerald ash borer, for instance. Emerald ash borer came into Detroit, Michigan, probably around 2000. It was actually 90, probably 98, 97, somewhere in there. It was discovered in 2001, first identified. But what happened was people were losing their ash trees, and ash is wonderful firewood. So they would cut up their ash tree that died, never ask why it died, throw it in the back of their pickup truck, and take it to their campsite in Monticello, Indiana, where they had a campsite at Indiana Beach Campground for the whole year. And they would bring down on their first trip down, bring down enough firewood for the whole year, stack it up, and leave it. That firewood was infested with emerald ash borer. The first site I found in Monticello, Indiana, in probably about 2007, I walked a circle of about 100 yards and found 8 campers with Michigan license plates. Connect the dots. They moved firewood, they left it sit. If you're going to move firewood, burn it all or buy it locally. But by moving this firewood, you can move a lot of things. The scale on the beech bark disease. But probably the worst thing is not moving the firewood, it's leaving it behind is probably the absolute worst thing you can do. So best management practice is if you're going to buy firewood, buy it locally. If you have to move it, burn it all, don't leave it behind. That's the longer message on firewood. The short message is just don't move it. Did I explain the question? Or explain the... Okay. So how to report stuff. I'm missing a couple of things on here. Yes, there's iNaturalist. We do look at it. My preferred is to use the EdMaps or the GlenEd app. It's not the easiest thing in the world to use, but you can. You can report things directly to us. 866-NO-EXOTIC is the hotline into our central office. If you call and say, hey, I'm in Elkhart County, they'll say, hey, that's Eric's. We'll just forward your message right to me. So I'll be the one calling you back. Also, dep@dnr.in.gov is our general email account, DEP, Division of Entomology and Pathology. That's a good way to get a hold of us as well. I did mention on our website.
Are those for insects as well as plants, or is
Yes.
that primarily for insects?
Yes, it's for anything. You can contact us for any type of invasive. Sometimes you call me and you say, hey, I found this or that, and you call me up and say, yeah, great. Nothing I can do about it. The GlenEd and the iNaturalist will actually log those finds, and somebody will look at your photos and either thumbs up or thumbs down. And usually the people who are looking at them are pretty darn knowledgeable at pest ID. I don't do any of that myself. I've got too much to do to go down that rabbit hole. Yeah, these two are tied together. One's the website, the other is the app that goes with it. But we also have a spotted lanternfly reporting tool that is on our website itself. It's tied into ArcGIS. This is something else that's really fun. This is the weekly review. And we put it out. It generally comes out Wednesdays. We're already working on it. A couple of issues have gone out this year. But we have over 10,000 subscribers. And it's where the nursery inspectors talk about what they're finding. Sometimes it's about bugs and pests. Jared last week posted about something on the terrestrial plant rule that he found for sale on Facebook Marketplace. I wrote about what are called critical control points, and I probably wrote way too much about it. But it was kind of fun. It's a different way of thinking about nursery inspections and about pests in nurseries. So we write about a lot of different things. Jared writes about apiary. Will often talks about some of the invasive species. So we all kind of have our areas that we write about. But when I get out and start doing nursery inspections and start finding pests, like, whoops, found the first Japanese beetle of the year, that will be reported into the weekly review. So it's just a great way to follow along with what we're doing, and it has all of our contact information on it. So I really encourage people. It's really easy to find on that. All you have to do is go to this website, and the weekly review link is right in the top. And just put your email address in and there you go. So this is my contact card, the QR code. So if you scan that on your phone, you'll have all of our contacts, my contacts right in your phone. So anyway, with that, I went a bit longer than I intended, but fire away.
I have a question.
Yes.
I'm curious, I'm in Pennsylvania, from the Philly area,
Uh-huh.
so I've seen a lot of these invasives kind of blow through.
Uh-huh.
People get very gung-ho about it, and that's partially, or mostly I would say due to education. What is your educational approach? if there is one, to getting this out to the public, and are you seeing public interaction? Or is there kind of, I'm just curious about that, or do you expect there to be a lot of public interaction with this?
Giving out to the public is hard. And the reason is you either know or you don't. And generally speaking, I'll take a step back. Have you ever tried to do bug ID over the phone with somebody who knows nothing about bugs? It's not easy. And pictures are worth 1,000 words. So the more we can get out there, like right now, how many of you have seen the spotted lanternfly billboard? One person.
Is that in Pennsylvania? Michigan?
Actually, there's about 12 of them across northern Indiana right now. I drove by one of them on my way here. Or was that last night? No, it was yesterday. It's on Old 30 outside of Warsaw, which is kind of a dumb place, but hey. But there are, along the interstates, there are spotted lanternfly billboards. It's that type of thing. We put that stuff out and it just doesn't register with most of the public. They're not concerned about it. And like emerald ash borer, well, my tree was fine and now all of a sudden it's dead. Well, I think it's been dying for about 3 years. And, oh, no, it was fine this morning. I don't think so. So there's a real educational gap about, and I'm not making fun of people, because everybody's got what's important to them. And for a lot of people, just paying attention to nature isn't real high on the radar. So that, it's really a hard question to ask, what's our educational philosophy? And in a nutshell, the answer is everything we can possibly do. Whether it is getting out to groups like CISMAs, Cooperative Invasive Species Management Groups or areas, working with CISMAs, working with Purdue, working with whoever will listen to us, coming to meetings like this. If I can teach somebody one thing, it's been a success today. So the strategy is, but at the end of the day, I'm a regulator, not an educator. Now that being said, does anybody know Jeff Berberink? He was my mentor when I worked for Purdue. So I had Jeff's job in Porter County. So I'm an educator at heart. I really am. But this job is as a regulator. I will take every opportunity I can, but this is not the job. So long answer is I'll do anything I can for education strategies, but we need help.
So it's kind of a two-part question. Are we, like, in terms of specific species and looking over time, are we losing ground, making progress? And then the second part is emotionally, how do you deal with this sense of, oh damn, it's like in the event the answer is we're losing ground. How do you deal with that, and how do you go to work every day?
I have a job. The answer is yes. We're losing ground in some places and we're gaining in others. I see things like Doug Talamay, and I got onto an Ohio State where they had him on a webinar, and there was like 900 people from across the world on this webinar that Ohio State did, or 1,000 or 1,200 or whatever it was. And he is such a great communicator, and you look at things in Nature's Best Hope, and I read that book and I thought, this is it. He gets it. And if people just do a fraction of what he suggests, we'll be gaining ground. But the other side is, you look at habitat and wetland destruction, and people like prairies and they like woodlands, but they don't necessarily like wetlands and mosquitoes and things that come along with it, and ticks and so on and so forth. But those are all part of our heritage, our ecological heritage here, especially in northern Indiana. And so, yeah, we're gaining, we're losing, there's still habitat destruction. I go by and I see another farm field where they're planting houses. And with the houses come, I'm still looking for this citation. I've seen it a couple of times. But I heard a number of speakers a while back say that the average homeowner uses twice as much chemical as the average farm field per acre. So when I see a farm field going to housing development, you think, well, they're using less Roundup. Well, are they? Are they really? What other chemicals are coming in? Household products that are going to be used on that land now that it's no longer an agricultural production. So, I don't know. How do I go to work every day? Well, it's because I get to do things like this. I get to change people's perspective. I get to educate people. That to me is fun. And there's things like going out and doing the spotted lanternfly egg mass surveys. And we get to put down a number that, hey, you know, by the end of the year, we scraped 500,000 egg masses. So you take that 500,000 egg masses times 40 to 60, so average of 50 eggs per egg mass. And there goes, what is that? 2.5 million spotted lanternfly that we destroyed? I'd say that's a significant impact. So, you know, we get to do things. You hang on to things like that where you have successes. Yes?
About 55 years ago, when I was a kid, growing up in southern Ontario, Dutch elm disease came through.
Mm-hmm.
There are now robustly resistant trees.
Yes.
Are they moving down into Michigan? There's a chance they could be reintroduced again? Do you know anything about that?
I know a little bit. And
That's happy news.
I'm actually going to step back to the one I know a little better, which is chestnut blight, which is kind of a similar thing. So we had chestnut blight in the end of the 1800s, 1880s, 1890s. We had Dutch elm disease come through, took out the American elms. And in both cases, they started working on resistance, and it has taken a long, long time. But on chestnut blight, somebody came up with a GMO, a genetically modified organism. They just took out one gene that made chestnut susceptible to the blight, flipped it over, and put it back in. That's all they did. And it has been incredibly successful. The problem is chestnut is edible, so now it's got to go through the FDA as a food crop, as a GMO, which is really put a stopper on introducing that tree. But I say all this because of our genetics. What took decades to do, we can do in years now. Because we can cross a bunch of trees. And what they used to do is take those crosses, grow them up, and then inject them with the pathogen and see if they die. Well, now we can grab a leaf, throw it in a blender, run the DNA off of it, and say, does this have the trait or not? And we can actually look at what's the promoter behind the trait. Is it going to express the way we want? We have so much more technology that we can screen things so much faster. So I say all that to say, it's coming. I don't know when, but when you look at the promotion of elm and chestnut, there are groups that are supporting this research, but there's not near the research money behind that as there is behind, say, corn or soybeans. And that's what's slowing us down. Yes?
I'm a member of the local SISMA that deals with, is trying to address invasive plants.
Absolutely.
And do you have a colleague bureaucrat at DNR who's the liaison for that? Or is that's not you, is it?
It can be, yeah. I've actually worked with the Fulton, Miami Sisma a little bit, but I just haven't gotten up to this one.
We've got one, so,
Yeah.
this isn't the forum for it, but I'd love to, have conversations like, I personally need lots of education about that, like, what are,
Yeah.
anyway, so, but.
I
it's good
can
to
do
know.
whatever
All right.
technically you need me
Okay.
to do with the SISMAs, I'm available. So for those of you who don't know, SISMAs are cooperative invasive species management areas. They started in southern Indiana and have kind of bloomed out of that. And what they are is they are groups of either single or multiple counties that have gotten together. They're usually around, involved around soil and water conservation districts, but not always. But I look at SISMAs as super groups. And what I mean by that is, so you got the soil and water, and you've got the Friends of a local state park, and you've got a Boy Scout group, and you've got a Shirley Hines Land Trust, and you've got a Isaac Walton League, and somebody says, hey, we've got this project on public ground, and somebody will say, hey, I've got some grant money, hey, I've got some product, some chemical, I've got some equipment, hey, I can provide the labor, and they do projects bigger than what any one of them could do individually. And in the way of doing that, they get promotion for what they're doing and increase public awareness and public knowledge. So the SISMAs are an incredible thing to get started and an incredible thing to get involved in.
You can see me if you want to.
Yeah, and they talk about weed wrangles and do all
Yeah.
types of things like that. And I've seen Don Slack has done presentations on what the SISMA statewide have done, and the statistics and the amount of, just how many garlic mustard they have pulled, and how it's just, the numbers are mind-blowing as to what some of these groups, like one group came in and they said, well, if they do a dump truck worth of what were they pulling there? Anyway, if they get a dump truck load, they'll be lucky. They did 3. And the city had to come back with the truck and keep loading. So they were just gung-ho on that. Yes?
You mentioned garlic mustard.
Mm-hmm.
Bill Major was a forester down at Mary Lee. He had been working on a project with some people on developing signs of resistance to garlic mustard. Do you know anything about that?
I don't.
Okay.
That's one I don't know.
Eric, I know we're right up against time, but you and I were talking a little bit about Asian longhorn beetle and maple. We're in the Maple City, Goshen to Maple City. Can you just say just a little bit about that reality?
This is the insect that scares the daylights out of me. This is an insect, this is Asian longhorn beetle, and it was introduced a couple of places into the United States in solid wood packing material. So what ends up happening is, I deal with trade too. So somebody orders something from China, it comes over on a pallet made from Chinese wood, and it's all supposed to be heat treated. Some of it isn't. Somebody decides to save 25 cents a pallet and skip heat treating and stamp it and say it was. Or it doesn't get heat treated well enough. And these live insects climb out, and we've had issues with other things. There's a whole, I could go off on a story about yellow lodgy corn beetle out of Ohio, where somebody heard scritching noises, and it turned out it was the new piece of furniture they just brought in, and the bugs were emerging. So, but it's something like that. But this particular insect's favorite food is maples. It will feed on a number of other things, hickory, poplar. In fact, poplar is the major it's a major pest of poplar in its native range in China. So this particular insect, if we find it, because of where it feeds in the tree, it feeds in the heartwood. There is no way to get insecticides into the heartwood of any tree. It cannot be done. So the only solution, if we find this insect, is to cut down every host species around it and chip them, shred them. Now in an urban area, that's not too bad. But you get into forested areas, and I was in a forested area where they did exactly that in Ohio. I've seen more trees left on a golf course than what they had left in that woodlot. It was absolutely unbelievable. And of course, part of the grant, part of the money was to come back and reseed that. But when you look at what species this thing will feed on, there's not a lot left when you're done with that. So it really messes up the ecosystem and the native trees that we have in an area. But this is a great reason, if you're on a tree board, to take a look at your inventory and look at what your species distribution is. Because if we got to come through and we were talking about this, if the solution is to take down every maple, and by the way, I don't care that that maple is on private property, we're taking it. I don't care. You can sue us if we want. It's the USDA's problem. They will go in and take it. And they will find a way.
What's the range of that being right now?
Right now, there is an area outside Cincinnati, Ohio. It has been declared eradicated for a number of years in Chicago, sections in New York, Long Island. I think there's an active population on Long Island. I think Boston might have been declared eradicated. The newest site is North Dakota, or I'm sorry, not North Dakota, North Carolina. And the problem with North Carolina is it's out in the coastal islands. And between having to barge equipment over to islands and dealing with alligators and poachers, they've had quite a time out there. But that's Asian longhorn beetle. The best way is, now we had an introduction into Indiana. It was found in a warehouse in Valparaiso. They caught it, called us up and said, hey, what in the heck? And we have had traps outside of that facility every year for the last 6 or 7 years. So we keep looking for it in the area, but so far it looks like it was just the one beetle. But that's the type of awareness we need when it comes to this type of stuff. When I worked in Porter County, the Port of Indiana would call me every once in a while or send me a picture and say, hey, what is this? And it was nice to know they were looking.
So if I'm just like out walking trails with her, not that we'll run into anything, but from a like homeschool perspective or nature school perspective, like what can we be doing to educate the younger generation, and what can they do, or what can I do if we're out there? Is that the first step, is just to contact you, or?
My favorite question, hey, what's that? I met up with one of my coworkers, and she did something I never even thought about doing. She was walking across the front of my car, my Durango. I'm like, what are you doing, Katie? She said, seeing if you hit any interesting bugs. See, I'm not an entomologist. I'm a plant physiologist by training, but Katie is an entomologist. And she is so fascinated by some of that. Hey, I know this isn't what we're looking for, but what is it? And sometimes those what is it questions are wonderful rabbit holes, especially for homeschooling. What is this, and how does this play into the environment? What niche in the ecosystem does this particular insect do? And identifying insects is a wonderful way to learn a language you didn't even know. Talking about the insect parts and all the names they use for all the descriptions. And, like on tree leaves are the same ways. Is it serrate? Is it undulate? Is it lancate? Is it, what are they describing with all these words? That's just a lot of that's based in Latin. And it just opens up a whole new language for kids. So, yeah, it's anything that you find that you want to, the phone number that is up here is my cell phone. Text me something. Hey, this is so-and-so. We met here. Tell me what you think. I'm more than happy to. If I don't know the answer, I'll send it off to somebody who probably does. Anything else? Well, I'm almost 5 after noon, but I will hang around if anybody's got anything. So,
Eric, thank you so much.